He's doing everything. I know he's doing everything.
It's 14.
All right, good afternoon. It's 5:30. Welcome to this public hearing. That's Monday, January 13th, 2025. Got to get used to saying the 2025. This public hearing is on the proposed text amendment vesting non-conformities. This proposed text amendment will expand the right, thank you, to repair, reconstruct certain existing zoning nonconformities otherwise in compliance with city code by vesting the status of a legal nonconformance if damaged, destroyed by forces beyond the owner's control. It should be noted that such structures uses would continue to be subject to any architectural review, district standards, with the Board of Architectural Review having the ability to waive requirements that negatively impact the repair, restoration. Additionally, the proposed change will have no impact on building, fire, and health safety codes, all of which will be applied. The Planning Commission approves this draft on September 9, 2024. Before we go into that, and I know, Jacob, you're going to come up. I read everything, but I'll let you elaborate. Just remember, we do have ADA devices if you need them. They're available right there by Jeremiah. Also, remember that each speaker will be limited to 5 minutes unless the City Council authorizes an extension of 3 minutes. And just remember that a public hearing is understood to be a forum for people interested in the subject matter to present information to the City Council for its consideration as it deliberates an issue. It's not a forum for debate or argument between members of the council or opponents or proponents or each other. It's here for us to listen. So, Jacob, or Nathan, okay. Whoever steps up, I love it, you know?
Yeah, I'm not gonna take much of your time. I'll let Jacob do most of the talking, but I thought it was important to, since we have 3 new folks, to kind of go through some of the history of this. In June, we proposed, or at a June meeting, it was proposed by a member of the audience that we add the vesting rights as a way to tackle some issues we were seeing across the city in terms of the way it manifests itself most of the time. In our department is a structure has been built and then downzoned over time, and when that structure goes to be sold, whether that's a residential property or a multifamily residential property, as part of the financing process that Robert and John maybe can speak to better than I can, but as part of that, one of the things they're checking is that it's able to be rebuilt through insurance under city zoning. So Jacob is frequently tasked with writing letters to lenders that say, yes, this can be rebuilt. But more often than not, and this is why I'll let him jump in, we were seeing where we couldn't say yes because it had been, the zoning had changed after the fact. So what that does is either the deal falls apart, oftentimes, or if it's a residential property, it affects their, oftentimes will affect the rate they can get. So neither of those situations we really want to be a part of. So we were given an ordinance out of, I believe it's Cambridge, Massachusetts, to potentially base this on, which is what we did, and we are responding to the directive that council at that time gave us. I'll let Jacob do any more technical elaborations, but I'm here for questions if you have them also.
Appreciate it.
Okay, I think between Robert and Nathan, most of the highlights of the ordinance have kind of been put out there, that you would still have to comply with building code and all life safety and AR districts, although the BAR may have ability to waive things and put conditions on it if they choose. The biggest changes in our commercial districts, which is kind of where I most of the time get the letter like request, is there was no ability for there was no avenue to go forward if it was not conforming. We had nothing in the ordinance if they wanted to rebuild if it was destroyed by some sort of disaster. In residential districts, there was an ability to go for a special exemption. But again, special exemptions are not by right. And you happen to go in front of the board and there's no guarantee you can go on. It puts boards in a very awkward situation if it, say it is something that's not popular, that it's something you have to go in front of them and they're trying to rebuild and then you have neighbors could be coming out against it. Puts an awkward position for everyone involved. So most ordinances do handle this is for only thing that if it's not voluntary. So if this is a situation where basically, you know, a disaster happened. It's not if someone chose to change use and they want to go back, or if they decided, oh, I'm gonna tear down this building and do some other development and decide, oh, you know, I'm not gonna do that, I want to be, this is only in disasters. This came up unfortunately quite a few times now with the hurricane that came through. We found lots of residential properties that had things like, you know, decks and sheds, garages, even the house itself are not always conforming. And a lot of times you can run into a insurance issue if, you know, the insurance company's saying, hey, your foundation is fine, we're not paying for that, you have to rebuild, but then the city's saying, no, you have to move the whole house. So the cost can come in, you know, they are not always aligned depending on how your insurance is set up. So, you know, we felt that this was a good ordinance. It was suggested by a member of audience, and council at that time told us to move forward with it. We've drafted up. We think we did, you know, kind of covered all the different avenues. If you read through it, it is pretty thorough. Goes through most scenarios, and it got approved by the Planning Commission at the, I think, September meeting, and with a positive recommendation to council to move forward as presented.
Thank you, Jacob.
No problem.
We'll open it up. All right. Just making sure. Give it a couple minutes.
Well, since we're just waiting a little bit, see if anyone shows. So some of the board members council members are new. What'll happen next is this is just the public hearing. So this is actually the chance for the public, even though it doesn't seem like there's anyone here, this would be their chance to ask questions, and they may, you know, submit questions in the meantime. After this it'll be brought in front of you for the first reading and second reading if it moves forward. That's really where the council is supposed to be asking the questions at that point. But that's how the process will go.
And just to remind me, Jeremiah, I should know this, 6 years on council, 15 days we have to give notice, is the time frame? 15 days?
Most cases,
Most cases?
yeah.
That's for the public, that's for this meeting.
Public
Yeah,
hearing.
but it's always 15 days, and you say most cases, and that's what I'll make sure that we
Yeah,
always
that's
give
what
out.
makes it kind of awkward, is like, so when I come and we go here to set the public hearing, it's not just for the next meeting. That's why you'll notice that it gets pushed off, since it's more than 2 weeks, it gets pushed to a month out, basically, usually is when the public hearing from when we ask to be set. That's something I don't know if we can ever change the ordinance, or we just have it set at staff level, set the public hearing, or we really have to go in front of council and just ask to set the hearing. Just seems cumbersome, but.
May
Oh,
I
yeah.
ask a
Wow.
question? When you had to write the letters, you mentioned, or Nathan mentioned, that y'all had to write the letters to the residential and commercials about, no, you cannot rebuild this deck, or et cetera. What was their response?
We usually do not hear back from them.
You did not hear back from them?
That's it. It's like sometimes we hear back from the property owner.
No, I was
That's
gonna
usually who
ask.
we hear back
I
from.
mean, did the property owner,
They're upset.
okay,
That's,
did they ask for forgiveness before permission?
oh, no, we have not had someone just go do it.
Okay,
You know, they've already, at that point, usually you've, you know, kind of submitted to us, so you're kind of.
doing it.
Yeah, usually it's the only time people well, not only time, but if someone's just to do something, usually they try to keep completely under the radar. Once they know that we're looking at it, very rarely does somebody try to then go behind the back and do it. Also, when you're asking, was this for like insurance purposes and stuff, you know, they're not gonna send them the check, so.
Yeah. I'm just curious, the landowner, is it mostly because this is my property, this has always been here, why can't I rebuild?
Usually they have no clue.
Okay,
Most people
that's
have
why I was getting at.
absolutely
No clue?
no
Okay,
clue.
that's
And
interesting.
it's
Okay,
a complete shock to them.
okay, that's,
But now, I guess, if these things that are not being approved were done without permit, would that be correct?
Yeah, well, then they'd be in violation to begin with. So that, part of this ordinance says that you have to otherwise be up to code. So if something was done illegally, so say someone did build an addition or a garage, usually it's a shed or something like that was done illegally, this would not help them.
Right. But even if but even, let's just use the deck.
Yeah.
They could have added the deck without a permit.
Mm-hmm.
So that could have been the time where you refused to allow the deck.
That's correct.
Okay. But the addition, let's just say they added a bedroom and a bath, that would have probably had to have been done by permit.
Well, even a deck has to be done with a permit if it's attached to the house. The only situation where it would not be required if it was a freestanding deck of under 200 square feet.
I know, but you could get away with a deck.
Yeah, you probably could.
Speak from experience.
But you could.
You go check, I'm just kidding.
I was looking at aerial photographs, John.
Oh, I'm gonna put out as a
Summer
trend.
project.
Yeah, Riggs Drive,
In my day, maybe, but not now.
we appreciate the thoroughness. All right, unless there are any other comments? Yep,
Can I make a comment on how?
come on up. Or,
Okay. I think Jacob and Nathan did a really great job. I'm Herb Conner, Chairman of the Planning Commission for this year. So when this was brought to us, just for the new people, so you understand there's certain, because of the way zoning changes have changed over time, that makes an existing building non-conforming. So as we downzone, a building would have conformed with the zoning prior, but it would not have conformed with that. So downzoning has created a lot of these problems. And one of the things that's happened, particularly I can tell you with Helene coming in a natural disaster, and this was a comment for the ones that were on council the night that they discussed this is a measure by which the property owner, if something happened and they were no longer in that current zoning or that use was not allowed, they could build it back like it was. So I just wanted to bring that up, and I think of it from the standpoint of, imagine how frustrating it is if you had a deck one way, tree comes in, smashes everything. Because of the change in zoning, you can't build it back. That doesn't make any sense. So we were charged by a whole council to send it back and to do exactly what's been done here. So that's how we got here. Does that help too?
Yes, thank you.
So I just wanted to bring that up. Does that help?
thank you.
What does downzone mean? I'm sorry, you all
No,
use
you're good.
terms that I'm learning.
Yeah, no, this is good. That's why we got a little extra time tonight. So downzoning would be, let's say, give me a good example of your RM3, which allows for a lot of stuff, an occupancy, or hang on. The example is, let's say you're zoned RM4, which allows for an occupancy of 4 people. You were downzoned to RM3, which is the next densest zoning, but RM3 only allows for 3.
Yeah.
So, checking. But then, so that means you could have a 4-bedroom house in an instance where you wanted to rent all 4 bedrooms because the way our thing worked, but you couldn't because you were now RM3. That's an example of that.
So what causes I know that that is something that is gonna come up here soon with the zoning, because I've taken the questionnaire and everything. What causes it to be downzoned? Okay, do I need to make an appointment and talk to Jacob?
That's probably a
Okay.
really long conversation.
I was going to say maybe we could provide context to the specific neighborhood that we were talking about, the rezoning, where this stemmed from. That might
Yeah,
help
that's
to
a
give
good-
a.
That might, yeah, thank you,
Yeah,
Lynn.
yeah.
So there's 2 forms of downzoning. There is downzoning where you change the zoning district, and then there's downzoning where you change what is allowed in a particular zoning district. I'll give a couple examples. So, you know the townhouses on, was it Rose Hill townhouses on 76?
Down in the hall.
Those have always been zoned RM1, but it used to be that townhomes were allowed in RM1. So they used to be allowed, and they didn't have occupancy limits. And that's changed over time. We've lowered the occupancy limits in that district to 2, and no longer allow townhomes in RM1.
Okay,
On the other hand, Riggs, the front of Riggs, so just off of Knox Lane, that used to be zoned RM1, where allowed for multifamily. So you'll actually see there's the digs at Riggs, and then there's couple other multifamilies that are right there on Riggs Drive. but those are all now zoned, sorry, R20. And R20 is never allowed for multifamily. So that district has actually changed. It used to be multifamily, and now it is single family. So those are your two examples. One is that what was allowed in that district changed, and the other one is the actual district boundaries were changed. Both
okay.
are done by city council.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this stemmed from a conversation about the ones on 76, and I think the conversation began as a rezoning conversation.
It did.
But this seemed to be a more realistic and probably easier to digest way to address the need that we were trying to tackle. Instead of going in and rezoning a whole neighborhood, we were gonna allow for the vested interest.
That's a very good.
Yeah, this is more holistic. This covers all the issues in the city.
And so the rigs example is good, is that those are legal by every other code we have. So that's how you get legal, but they're non-conforming to the zoning district. So that's why we use that nomenclature of legal non-conforming. But the rezoning that Lillian's talking about, that was the catalyst for this. There were, and don't quote me, there's like 8 units in townhomes in that complex that have, they're 4 bedrooms. They're obviously rented out, but if something were to happen to those when they're sold is when we get those letters. So if, God forbid, there was to be a fire there, they could not rebuild and have the same occupancy that they had.
Well, they can't really build townhouses.
So they can build a townhouse. Yeah. And as part of that, there are condos behind that also, Cedarwood. And a vacant parcel. We originally suggested, hey, let's rezone all that to just clear it, and this came as another option.
Thank you for y'all's patience. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Can I ask a question? The damage destroyed, what's the standard for that? How do you determine if somebody really is a damage destroyed, or I'm trying to use that as a way to?
Right.
Is there a clarity?
Well,
You see what I'm saying?
what would,
I know what things I think.
because you can
are
only go
hurt.
back to how you were, so what would be there's no, it's not like it's 50% because we're saying that you can go back. So,
I'm saying, because you'd be the one who asked, do I qualify under damage destroyed to redo my unit?
oh,
make it-
okay,
you gotta
so,
make a
okay.
call. Does it
So we
qualify
would
for that?
consider maintenance not to qualify. So if you just let your roof leak and it just over time leak, that would not qualify, because that is a maintenance issue compared to if a tree fell on it or a fire. Honestly, it's a judgment call from my point of view. So, the only time I've ever in my career had it where it was kind of like questionable was a issue where there was a washout from from rain, and whether or not that was something that happened over time or was a big event. That was kind of the judgment call on that one. Usually it's pretty clear, if it's a maintenance issue where you just or some old decrepit house that, or if it's truly that it was a disaster. But we do not consider maintenance issues would qualify.
So I guess operative term is forces beyond the owner's control, and city
That is
decides
their
that somebody
control.
qualifies for this
Yes.
special.
Exactly, that's the whole control. If you could have prevented this by normal maintenance, you don't qualify.
And usually at that point, I'm sorry, go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say, that force majeure is typically the term,
Yeah,
an act of God.
yeah.
That's it. The language is long and complicated, but that's in layman's terms what it means, act of God.
I was gonna say, usually if there's something obvious from a maintenance standpoint, we've already been there for other code reasons. I mean, a washout's a good example of a situation where we wouldn't be, but, or erosion or something like that. But typically, if you're not keeping up your property, the neighbors in Clemson tend to let us know, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience.
All right, if there are not any other comments, questions, we'll go ahead and close this public hearing. Then we're gonna start right after. Do we need a break, or are y'all ready to keep going? I'm looking around, y'all good? That's what it says on the agenda, we can keep going, so. Is everybody good? Looking around?
Let's go.
All right, we're gonna close out this public hearing. I'll start it again. You just tell me when. You good? Good. Okay, all right. Welcome to the City Council, the regular City Council meeting this January 13th, 2025. We'll call this meeting to order. I hope everybody had a great holiday season. I said I know that last week, but I'm saying it again. So hopefully had a great holiday season. But we'll go ahead and start our city council meeting with the pledge and, well, the invocation and the pledge. Councilmember Smith.
Good evening. If you want to join me, and however you decide to pray, I'm just going to ask for us to just be mindful and thankful of what our citizens and fellow men are going through, and women on the West Coast with the fires, and just keep them in our thoughts and prayers. And so I just want to do a moment of silence so that we can think about how we want to honor and pray for those individuals, and just keep in mind what we're here to do tonight. So if you can just, with a moment of silence. Thank you. And I'll go to the Pledge of Honor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. All right, next on the agenda is our public session. Before we go into public session, very quickly, I just want to, again, Councilmember Smith, thank you very much for serving for 4 years. I know Councilmember Boatwright is taking over now on Mayor Pro Tem, but we appreciate all your service over the past 4 years and all that you did, so thank you very much. And I know you will continue doing that on council. We're all on council, so thank you very much. Turn it over. It's that easy.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm going to open public session. A reminder that it is open for anybody to speak on items that are not already on the agenda. If you have comments about things on the agenda, you will have time to do that when we get there. These are limited to 3 minutes. I do have some submitted if nobody comes up. And Nanda, I know you submitted some. Would you like me to read those, or do you want to?
If you don't mind.
Sure, okay.
Thank you.
I don't think there's anybody else, so I'll go ahead. I'm going to go just in order of the stack that I was given. The first one is from Stephanie Platt at 103 Mountain View Lane. The comment reads, "Are the sidewalks from 133 to Mountain View Park still scheduled for 2028? Or is it possible council could get the project moved up? Also, when is the next Conversations with Council meeting going to be scheduled? And finally, on December 23rd, Clemson Public Works installed a new sensor on our water meter. What does that do?" The next comment is from Nanda at 213 Charleston Avenue. The first reads, "The new crosswalk in front of the Moda on College Avenue is confusing and dangerous. It provides potentially very hazardous situations to occur while attempting to use this crosswalk, especially the Clemson Life students. A resident told me he almost ran into the concrete while exiting Papa John's. The brief explanation given at last Monday's council meeting about why this crosswalk was put in didn't make sense. I would like to request an explanation about this that makes sense, and would also like to ask the city to come up with ways to make this a safer situation to all its residents. Thank you." And then the next one, submitted also by Ms. Edgerton, reads, "Wyatt Avenue's apartments. Please confirm whether or not the sales of the Wyatt Avenue's apartments to a developer who intends to knock them down to put up student housing has been stopped. Thank you."
I couldn't
The
understand.
Wyatt Avenue.
Wyatt, sorry. Oh, I thought, yeah, Wyatt, W-Y-A-T-T.
So read that again.
Here, I got it. So, there's the actual.
And we don't usually respond, but we can work on following up with that for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other comments?
All right. Thank you for, we'll close out public session. Thank you very much. Next is the possible approval of minutes for January 6th, 2025. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes for January 6, 2025 as presented.
Seconded.
Any comments, discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All right, thank you very much. Next, we'll move into reports and discussion. First is receive a presentation of the City of Clemson's annual audit report for the fiscal year ending 2024 by Malden and Jenkins. And Leslie, you're going to start it off, and then you're going to take it all? No, just kidding. Thank you.
Yes, I would like to introduce Grant Davis. He is the partner with Malden and Jenkins that manages our audit. So, Grant, take it away.
Yeah.
Well, good evening, Mayor, members of council. Thank you for having me here to go over the results of our audit. I think you have some hard copies of some things in front of you, and I'm going to refer to basically both of those as I go through, and I typically try to refer to some page numbers if you're trying to keep along, but by far the more important is, mine's in black and white, but the thicker document, the annual comprehensive financial report. And since I am aware that there are a couple of new members on City Council, I'll just briefly explain a few elements of the document itself. And I'm sure you've had a chance to read every page at this point. It is pretty long. The annual comprehensive financial report is really above and beyond financial reporting, so it's above and beyond what state law requires or continuing bond disclosure requires. The city has some new publicly offered debt that was issued back over, I guess, at the end of the summer. There are continuing disclosure requirements as long as that debt is outstanding. So this document is really, again, above and beyond what is required by all that. So I think in a spirit of information availability and transparency, there's a lot of information here. What's unique about it, if you would compare this to a city's set of financial statements that are not comprising an annual comprehensive financial report, are really two elements. One is what's called the introductory section. So it includes a letter of transmittal, which is really the bulk of that. And then at the very end, the statistical section. And the statistical section is really just for the most part, 10 years of data on a variety of financial things, operating indicators, personnel, things of that nature. Just after the introductory section, I'm going to move fast, so just interrupt me if you have any questions as we go. But just after that introductory section, you'll see our independent auditors report, and I'll give you a page number here in just a moment. Page number 1, how about that? Not literally page number 1, but the first page with the number on it. Our opinion, our report goes on for about 4 pages, but the big takeaway is the second paragraph on the first page, and it's an unmodified opinion, and that's really not glamorous language, but it's really the only acceptable result in a financial statement audit. So that's a clean opinion on the city's financial statements. And it goes through, this report goes through and talks about management's responsibility, our responsibility as the auditors, in conjunction with the document itself and the financial statements of the city. So ultimately, a clean report. Beyond that, we've issued another document that we call our auditor's discussion and analysis document. It is the smaller of the two. And that's really what I wanted to kind of go through with you briefly here this afternoon or this evening. The purpose of this document is really to communicate to you all some things that we are required to communicate by our professional standards and by government auditing standards. Items at the conclusion of our audit. We can do that either verbally or in writing. I'm going to do a little bit of both. Everything that I say is memorialized in this document, so you'll be able to read it in here. But beyond our required communications, there's a little bit of financial analysis, very, very brief financial analysis, some information about who we are as a firm, and then to the extent that you maybe want to read about new accounting standards that are going to affect the government financial reporting going forward, there's some information on that. But just again, as I flip through here, page number 5 of that auditor's discussion analysis document talks about our opinion in a much shorter version than if you were to read all 4 pages. Again, nothing unique here, and we've issued ultimately a clean opinion. Page 6 talks about the annual comprehensive financial report, which is what I just mentioned to you a moment ago. You can see all of its elements broken down there. Just again, to familiarize yourself with that. And then beyond that, there are, again, just a few financial highlights I want to mention. And of course, all of this, I'm going to be rounding numbers, but on page 8, from a high level, so all of the city's activities, all of the city's funds and operations, some high-level financial analysis here, about $162 million in assets. The bulk of those are going to be capital assets, so that's things like buildings, infrastructure, things of that nature, and those are reported net of accumulated depreciation, offset by liabilities of about $65 million, which gives what we call, in the governmental world, net position or equity of about $97 million at the end of fiscal year 24, the year ending June 30, 2024. That's that $97 million figure I mentioned. That's an $18 million increase from the prior year. So from June 30, 23 to June 30, 24, equity increased by about $18 million. Equity in the governmental world is comprised, at least for the purposes of this statement, in really 3 buckets, and that's what we call the net investment capital assets, which is sort of what it sounds like. It's your capital assets, again, that infrastructure, buildings, all of that, reduced by any debt that was issued to finance the acquisition of those capital assets, and that's the bulk of that $97 million. $65 million is what that amount is, and then restricted net position is $16 million. That's restricted by an external party, so that's not available for appropriation, but again, restricted by some external party for ultimately a variety of reasons to make up that $16 million, and then the final $16 million is unrestricted, so it's sort of everything that's left. So all of that adds up to the $97 million. Page 9, this is just a few, page 9 and 10 are just a few charts for your viewing pleasure. Sometimes I put more charts in here, and I always get the feeling I'm going to chart you to death. With I'm an accountant, I like to look at numbers. Not everybody feels that way, but this first chart on page 9 is the general fund's revenues by type. The big red slice of the pie is taxes, and that's typical in really any government operation. Page 10 is the same concept, but with the general fund's expenditures. Public safety is the large slice of the pie here at $6.6 million, which is also typical for city government specifically. But on page 11, there are a few percentages, and I want to just try to bring this to life a little bit. The general fund, which is the primary operating fund of the city has a variety of funds and activities that are accounted for separately from the general fund, but the general fund specifically is usually of primary interest. Ended the fiscal year at $16.7 million in its fund balance, so that's its equity. That's an increase of about $1.5 million from 23 to 24. The general fund's fund balance is broken down into categories, just like I mentioned earlier. You've got non-spendable, restricted, committed, and unassigned. Unassigned fund balance is really probably the more important number here, and that's basically fund balance that is available for appropriation. And that figure at the end of fiscal year 24 was $14.5 million. But if we look at total fund balance, and in view of these percentages on page 11 here, what we're demonstrating is this is the general fund's fund balance as a percentage of the general fund's expenditures. So the closer to 100%, the more coverage you have in terms of your expenditures. So you can see that in the last 5 years, from 2020, that's increased from 59% up to 84, basically 84.5%. Again, that's general fund. The general fund's total fund balance is a portion of its expenses. And I mentioned a moment ago that the largest slice of your revenue pie was tax related. Most of that is not received on a standard monthly basis. Most of it comes in at the beginning of the calendar year. And because of the cyclical nature of that major slice of your revenue pie, you really got to have fund balance on hand to get you through the rest of the year, to get back around to that big revenue source. So I'll often get asked the question of how much fund balance is enough or how much is too much. It's really about an impossible question to answer, just because every city is a little bit different. Everyone has their own initiatives and things that are going on. But I think if you think about where your year end is, at the very least, you want to be able to get back around to when your cash flows are coming in from those taxes, which again is typically the beginning of the year. So that's 6 months. The city has about 10 months of expenditures in its fund balance, which I think is a very healthy place to be. Certainly exceeding that sort of lean time of year to get you from summer back around to the start of the new calendar year. But again, all this is mentioned here in this paragraph. I've got 10 months of expenditures, 306 days, whatever makes the most sense to you. Months makes a little bit more sense to me. But again, a very strong fund balance and ultimately a highly liquid fund balance. And what I mean by that is the fund balance is not tied up in assets that are not representative of cash. The city has a lot of cash in its general fund. So it is, again, that fund balance figure is largely available for appropriation. Just after that, again, if you're looking through the financial statements, there again, the city has a variety of funds and activities: water, sewer, transit. I won't go into all of that, but beyond those basic financial statements, you get into the footnotes. These go on and on and on. Not a lot has changed in terms of the structure or in a lot of cases, even the verbiage in those footnotes. The numbers have changed, the dates have changed, but beyond that, I won't spend any other time going through the footnotes with you. A few other things, last couple things that I'll mention. At the very end of the annual comprehensive financial report, we have 2 additional reports on our letterhead, and you can flip with me or not, you don't have to. One is our report on internal controls and compliance with laws, regulations, grant agreements, so forth and so on. This is what we call our yellow book report. This report is not designed to offer an opinion, like what I mentioned at the beginning, but provide what we call negative assurance, which is to say that we are required under government auditing standards to plan and perform our audit to ultimately notify you all if we identify any instances of non-compliance or internal control deficiencies. I'm happy to say that we did not identify any instances of non-compliance or internal control deficiencies relative to the financial statement audit. Now, the last thing, try not to be confusing, the very last thing, the last report on our letterhead does offer an opinion. So we've got 3 letters, 2 offer an opinion, 1 doesn't. The last one is what we call our single audit report. So anytime...
What page is that on?
Let's see. 119. The single audit report is a compliance audit that is triggered anytime an entity receives and ultimately expends over $750,000 in federal money. It triggers a compliance audit. So the Federal Office of Management and Budget issues a document on an annual basis that dictates all the compliance requirements for all the federal money that goes out to anybody ultimately. The city did have to undergo a compliance audit. It spent, let's see here, the city expended, bear with me while I find my page here. I think it's about $9 million. Yeah, $9.1 million in federal awards from a variety of different programs. We audited about 96% of that $9.1 million from a compliance standpoint. And the 2 programs that encompassed were the Federal Transit Cluster Program and then the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds Program. In our opinion, that begins on that page 119, is another clean opinion, so an unmodified opinion on compliance. I will say that we did note one deficiency in internal controls relative to a reporting requirement. So the federal government requires certain reports to be submitted to it, sometimes on a quarterly basis or an annual basis. One was submitted late, and that's a compliance issue for that program. But in any event, still a clean opinion on compliance outside of that one item that we call, what we have to call a significant deficiency in internal control over compliance. But other than that, I think a very positive result from the audit. I know Leslie and her team worked really, really hard, and a lot of others. I mean, this is obviously a huge document. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on here. I just want to thank them and really everybody for the help that they provide to us to get us in and out and be able to report all this to you. But again, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have if you may have them.
This is a basic question on the revenue funds flow. As you mentioned, the large portion that taxes, 10.8 million, comes in all at once. The second largest portion, the licenses and permits, 4.6, does that come in steadily or it comes in all at once?
Well, so the business licenses, and Leslie, you may have to correct me, I think the state law has changed, they're due in May, is that right?
So we start receiving some of those funds in January, but the bulk of them come in like it's due April 15th to May 15th, in that time period. So a lot of people wait till then to pay, but some do pay, but that we get most of the money in the first quarter, beginning of the second quarter.
So really the bulk of all the revenues come in, to your point about requiring a larger fund balance to maintain from expense flow. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, typically, really, probably the most steady revenue stream that you have are your from your water sewer operation. You've got people buying water and sewer service, they buy about the same amount, generally each month. That's pretty standard. Now, there are some fluctuations, but in your general fund, there's really not it's a little bit frustrating for governments from a cash flow perspective, trying to manage your cash flows, which is why you need a fund balance to get you through that lean time. There's really not a real large revenue source that comes in regularly throughout the year.
Other comments, questions? We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Leslie, we appreciate everything you've done. Please express our appreciation to the whole team, like Grant just said it. Thank you for sharing a clean opinion. He needs to get back. Leslie, you get to come up again. Next, to present the budget variance for the fiscal year 2024 from the audited financial statement.
Can you pull up page 66?
Of actual audit.
Yeah. Show you having some questions. So as part of, in our ordinance, it requires us to bring forth our overages in each function line item in the financial statements. And there's one page in the footnotes that shows it, but one of the things I wanted to kind of show, because I'm going to talk a little bit about, a little bit longer on general fund, because we have a few items, and one of the things I want to point out at the end is on this sheet. So, first of all, general government is basically made up of administration, finance, IT, HR, and what we have is public buildings, so the guys that manage all of our buildings. So the one line item in general government that did go over budget was administration, and primarily there are two reasons. One is we had to procure additional professional services to help during the breach, and that was definitely unbudgeted, unforeseen, so that was part of that overage. And then last year, in 2024, we budgeted for a class and comp adjustment, but it was not individual based on every department. We did it as an other expenditure so that it would be in the general fund budget, but not, because we didn't know where it would end up, whose departments would be getting money and how much would we need to put in those. So ultimately, that is what caused police, the public safety police item, and general fund, general government administration to be over as well. So that answers the top two of the general fund ones. Public safety is the next one for fire as well. In 2024, that budget, we in our contract with the university for fire services, it is gradually going up every year as part of a 5-year contract. And so what happened when we were budgeting for fiscal year 24, we missed raising it for the next year. It just was one of those, it just got put in at the same amount as it was the previous year. So it was just a clerical error, unfortunately. So that made us have the overages for fire for $126,000. The capital outlay item where we're over, and I guess I should have asked you to put that up after I finish this part. I'm sorry. The capital outlay primarily is, and well, really is all of this. The Old Stone and Cherry Road reconstruction project that happened, some reason we didn't put it in the budget, but we had funding already set aside for it. We received funds from C grant from the county/state in the of $500,000 that really offsets part of this. And then the university put in money for it, which was around $500,000. So 300 is truly money that we didn't budget that we should have. And so that is why we're over budget for that project and in the capital outlay. And then debt service, one of our things that we've been discussing a good bit is the new GASB rules for leases and SPIDAs, subscription-based IT agreements. And those are very difficult to budget ahead of time because it looks like it's an operating thing, and then they make us now book an asset, and then you have a debt service on what is the payment, even though you're really paying over time. So those were not budgeted, so that's where the over budget for debt service came into play, was for some of those items. Now, if you'll pull up the other sheet. The reason I wanted her to show this is, if you look, we were over budget totally for expenditures in the general fund for $95,000. And it's like the last number on the bottom of that page, next to the last number. But if you look at revenues, we were over budget by $2 million. So we collected $2 million more than we expected, and we spent $95,000 more than we expected. So we netted a lot better than we expected. So that's the reason that page is so important. And then we can go back to the other. So in the Community Development Fund, this fund received a HUD grant. So we bought some property. So we didn't budget the property, but we didn't budget the grant either, so they offset. So that's where that over budget came into play. In the Hospitality Tax Fund, so in our hospitality tax and hospitality fee funds, over the last 2 or 3 years, we've tried to really not account for general fund functions in those. We try to budget transfers and keep the expenditures in the appropriate departments in the general fund. However, we do things over, and it old things are hard to change sometimes. And so some things got booked here that weren't budgeted, but there were funds for them. So we just, we're slowly working through that process, and hopefully are better every year with this. Capital outlay for this fund was, we had some additional costs associated with building the bathrooms out at Dawson Park. So that was that overage. And then again, the debt service was due to being a GASB lease that had been paid for out of the hospitality fee or tax. On to the next page. Hospitality fee, the culture and recreation. So the hospitality last year, unbudgeted, unforeseen, I think when we were going through this budgeting process, we decided to issue bond for hospitality revenues, and so This bond was for the Nettles Park addition, for the Clemson Park redevelopment, and for some trails on the Green Crescent Trail. Because we didn't budget the bond, we didn't have a line item for the professional fees associated with the bond. And so that's what that $100,000 is. And then the debt service pieces, the principal and the interest, basically, we didn't budget for a bond payment. So that's why that's over budget. Any questions on that one? Because that one's an odd one. And then in tourism fund. So the tourism fund is what we in-house call the state accommodations fund. That is the money we receive from the state for what they call ATAX grants. And so we had additional funds in our fund balance. And so we had enough to cover some grants, more than we had budgeted or foreseen, because we got more money in as well. So we gave more money than we had budgeted. So those are all of the overages for the fiscal year of '24. Are there any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Please express our appreciation. Ally, please express it to Andy. I know he's out, but for yourself, the two of y'all leading the effort too as well, so thank you. So next we'll receive, well, yeah, you'll do it for Sawyer? Okay, we'll receive the CAT Bus Agency Safety Plan as required by the Federal Transit Administration. Ally?
Yes, thank you. He'll probably walk in because I didn't tell him the meeting was going to start early.
That's what I was looking around, yeah.
But each year, because CATBUS receives federal funding, we're required to update our safety action plan. And so this is just updating it with the new information. They added a section on assaults on transit workers that was added to it. This is just a formality that we have to bring to you each year.
Any questions for Ally? And if there are any questions too, Sawyer will be here shortly as well, but no questions?
I was a little curious. When I skimmed it, it talks about a CDL training program that's in-house. Do we also talk with the folks over at Tri-County in that?
There's a partnership with Tri-County, and wish Cody or one of was here to talk further. But utilities, public works, and transit all work with Tri-County Tech. At some point, we were going about their landing pad or landing out towards Anderson. So I'm not sure exactly the full package deal, but we do partner with them.
Other questions or comments? All right. Next, we'll discuss an amendment to the Ethics and Code of Conduct statement for elected appointed officials.
And we took a stab at, after your discussion, so the language is in red, and happy to make any changes.
So I was curious if we could put this to like a working group or something.
Sorry?
I was curious if we could put this to a working group.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, didn't mean to interrupt you, Adam, but being new on the council, I would like to, I've only been on it 7 days and it's been a whirlwind. If I could have a little bit more time to look at the code of ethics and conduct and kind of dissect it a little bit more and possibly have a working group and then come back with our I's dotted and T's crossed.
Maybe set 3 people who can review it and then send it through you guys, through
And
legal
legal.
and out to all of us too, so everybody gets a little feedback on it.
So I'm just asking for more time
No,
because
I-
I'm new and I'm drowning in information, so I like to have a little
Take your time. Take your
Sorry,
time.
my
And
bad.
you know the history on this, that Lillian and John
Yes.
originally presented this, which we vetted out, we had discussion on. So it's always a working document. And so this is good discussion, need to take as much time. And then if you want to designate a working group,
Yeah, I just
That's like-
thought if we tabled it for right now and maybe set a working group with Alma, and I've talked to Lillian and Windsor, both had expressed some interest in working on it, would make an motion for that be appropriate?
I don't know that there's a motion necessary. I think
Okay, so-
it sounds like a plan.
We'll get together.
Yeah.
So
So,
can they do 4, or do they do?
No, I think we'll have to be more strategic with how we communicate about it, but we can lean on Ally and Andy, I think, to help communicate to the larger group. Just context, I have talked with y'all, so thank you very much for chatting about it today. The intention of this is to definitely fine tune as we go, so love the feedback. I also, and this might be another discussion item, on this, under the same umbrella. When we brought this up, the intention was to do exactly this and to bring back feedback, keep it going, without any intention to like have people re-sign it every time we make a tweak to it. So just for clarity, I think we've all, sent out the first draft, we review it, we sign it if we agree to it, we move on, and then all the different changes that we talk about throughout the year can be presented in a new document for signature for us and other groups next January, so perfect.
But the only other question I had is, I guess what we had talked about was with applying it to boards versus the council, is that one document or is that 2 different documents? Is there enough difference in the 2? Maybe that's something for you guys to look at, that there's something more specific for one group over another.
yeah, so that would be part of the working group when y'all come back, and this is the first stab at it.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
it's probably not the best wording, stab at it, but this is the first approach at it to
You
see.
got to start somewhere, and
Exactly.
that's better.
So, yeah, no, I think that's great.
So we'll just follow up with you guys on that. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, next is to receive a report on the paving list for the 2025 and 2026 paving cycle. Thank you, Nathan.
Paving cycle. Paving.
I came a few minutes early.
Good, smart, you're a smart man, Nathan.
Yeah, so, real quick, we started in 2019, so right before ARPA kind of came aboard, we started really trying to prioritize what we were calling a complete streets, and DOT co-opted that, and that now means something completely different statewide, so we now kind of calling it utilities first. The idea is that we don't pave a street that we know that we have underground work that has to be done, trying to prevent cuts. When we did this, we were like, oh, this is a really beginning phases, and we're gonna work through this. And then we got $8 million to do utility work. And so now we have, and because of that, we've kind of put off paving a little bit because we knew we needed to have a large sum of money to pave all those roads. So normally, our normal list is about two to three roads a year. So these are a much larger, broader list. Just want to kind of preface that a little bit. The roads you see in 2025 are strictly roads that were affected by the ARPA project. So where we did water, sewer, stormwater work in those neighborhoods. Riggs, Strawberry Lane, Roslyn Vineyard, and then Pickens, and they're like what we called West Calhoun, so Calhoun, Pickens Street, College Street. So, and then you can see there's a variable way of how we're planning to actually address those, whether it's mill in place, which is we've been successful on pretty low volume roads, low to medium volume roads, where we basically take the entire road and mill it down 6 inches, compact it, fill in where we have to with some what they call leveling course, and then overlay that with a 2-inch overlay. That gives us, that's a pretty good process. And then patching is literally what you normally see, where someone comes in and cuts the road, patches 6 inches full depth of asphalt, and we come in and overlay. So this is in general what we're looking at. And then the 2026 kind of goes a little bit similar. There's 2 projects on here that are possible. The Elm Street project, so I'm sure many are familiar with the 2016 streetscape that happened over there on Calhoun and Clemson Street. Yes.
Yeah.
And when we did that project, because the railroad was still finishing or DOT was finishing the bridge for the railroad, they needed Elm Street for construction. So we put a base coat on it, we patched it, we didn't do anything else beyond that. So that road still needs to be overlaid, but half of the streetscape, so the side closest to the railroad hasn't been complete, and so we're presenting a finish for that in our budget request this year, so if that happens, so, you know, if y'all approve that, we will then also add Elm Street to be overlaid as well, for the 2026. The way paving works as well is just to kind of give everyone a quick education, because we are in a very unique paving situation, paving contractor situation. We have about one long line paver, which is who we try to attract to that. So, and talking with them, they require a year contract. So they give us dates. They're pretty within like about a week or two of when they arrive, but they do require a year to be able to get the work done. So this is the list, and I'm open to any and all comments.
So then the 25 list is on the contract?
We're getting ready to put it out to bid within the next week.
Are you looking at the entirety of Calhoun, or are you only looking
West Calhoun. Yeah.
That'll be adding that up. What's the total miles? You want me to add it up?
I have not added that up. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. And I'm going to test you. No, I'm not going to test you because you know these. Isn't the city, we have 75 miles in the city? Is that about right? 75 miles?
No, it's twice that.
It's 187 lane miles.
Right, lane miles.
No, but in the city that we're responsible, the county has, I think, the county has like less than 2 miles.
The county handed everything over to the city.
We have now everything, and then DOT, this may be old, but DOT, we used to have 42 miles for DOT, so that's where
That's lane miles, right, DOT?
Yeah, 42 miles.
Lane miles.
Yeah,
42 lane miles.
correct.
Each side counts as a lane.
So 123 would be 5 lanes. So two
You see, like,
westbound, 2 northbound.
We were kicking around one time, that it was 140 some odd lane miles that were the cities. Because remember, we had that conversation about it would take us 30 years at the rate we're allocating to fix them. So yeah, that was.
So that's why I'm trying to revisit our thought process of how many total miles in the city.
Right, but these are actual miles, not lane miles up here, right?
Correct. Those are lane miles. So lane miles for each.
So Riggs is 2, 3 lane miles, so it's actually just a mile.
Yeah, it's
Roughly a mile.
roughly a mile.
So in 25, we're getting about 10% of the roads. Am I guessing real quickly?
Yeah.
I think that's what we did, so, yeah.
And that was with the $8 million ARPA funds,
Yeah,
well,
so-
because we did the underneath, okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
But if you say that's 25, so 26 is a similar amount, I think we still got a huge amount that needs to be done citywide.
Yeah, go back to 26, if you don't mind.
So we only have now state roads and city roads.
Right.
We no longer have county roads.
Cool, and I was confusing, this was an old thing, it was, we had 1 mile,
Yeah.
I think it was 1.3 miles of county roads, I mean, literally less than 2 miles.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Each year, we're doing 2 to 3 miles of just straight road,
Yep,
out of about 75,
yep,
give or take.
that's, yep.
So Nathan, I got a question for you.
Okay.
So I know we pay based on need as far as condition of the roads, but in general, are we serving our communities that are privileged and underprivileged in this services? Do you see what I'm saying?
So-
Do we have a good division?
I'm looking at we're looking at 26, 25 as kind of a unique situation because of ARPA. Otherwise, we are trying to look at making sure that we take care of everything. But truth of this is a lot of things is if we know there's a project on the works, we try to hold off on paving because we know that there's a potential for a developer to repave a road for us. So there's a lot of things that we're looking into when we make our list. This one is not our true list. We actually do an annual paving and then we're trying to look at closeness and things like that. There's about 20 different factors that we're looking at when we're selecting our roads, but yet making sure that we're getting everyone in the city, right? As equally as we can.
Yeah.
That's one of the things we're looking at while we're.
Nice.
So you just said, you still have that top 25 roads that we're looking to pave? Could you send that out?
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
When's it? Oh, they're talking.
Yeah, she's busy talking.
It's John over there. I was just saying, I'm playing, just playing. We have a top 25 that he's given us before in the past, top 25 roads to pave over time. And so it's basically the worst ones in the top, of course. And so he'll provide, and he's provided that before. So if you don't mind providing that, that'd be awesome. That'd be great. Appreciate it.
We're, like I said, we're annually reevaluating roads change position, and then we're also looking at how fast a road degrades, right? So like if it's a 5, but it becomes a 3 over a year, what happened to cause that? And so trying to, because we're on a 1 to 10 scale.
And some of those roads were impacted by the water line that went in earlier.
Yeah, and that you repair, yeah.
Right.
Over there also, Old Stone, wasn't it?
Well, you
No.
know, Riggs was, they had a
Riggs.
water line in there, and then they came back with the other stuff.
Yeah, and like Riggs is a really good example. This is what everyone was kind of trying to do, and we didn't have a way of actually verbalizing it. We came in, we did the water line, and we knew that the sewer needed to be replaced. And so one of the reasons we didn't repave it is because we knew we had to do the sewer line. It was always in our time, and then ARPA came and it kind of accelerated. So, you know, we budgeted about $300,000 to $400,000 for projects. So you think ARPA roughly took it and gave us 16 years worth of projects in a year and a half. So compress that, and now we're able to actually start coming in here, and it gave us a really good leg up on getting stuff completed.
Greatly appreciate the update. Other questions, comments? Thank you.
Thanks.
Staff reports, Ally.
Thank you. First, I'll start by giving Public Works and Cat Bus and Utilities and Police a shout out for preparing for the snow. We didn't know what would happen. Guess it could have been a lot worse, but they were ready, and Bree and Natalie too with their communications. A real team effort, so really proud of them. Reminder that the Hometown Legislative Action Day is next Tuesday in Columbia. Conversation with council, the next one, first of the year, will be February the 13th. And we do not have a location set yet. If you have any recommendations, if we don't get one, we usually go to the fire substation on Issaquah Trail. And a few questions that came up at the last meeting, I'll turn it over to Nathan, because that might be best to answer, that we got the public comment last meeting.
Public comment, okay. Yeah, I do want to stress too, when, if anybody can hear me from Universe, but when you write in for public comment, it's very important to put your email address and contact information so that we can get back in touch with you. But at the last council meeting, I wrote this out a little bit, but at the last council meeting, a citizen asked, or stated that they had heard that the city wanted to rezone both sides of Mountain View Lane to be multifamily. The city has not proposed a rezoning of any of the properties in that district, and my department has certainly been approached about 807 College Avenue multiple times. Those are, it's called the View at Blue Ridge right now, Salons back in the day.
Oh, okay.
They're basically quadplexes, and I don't know how many are in there, but a lot, 12 or 16 buildings. We've been approached about that in the past by multiple developers, but we haven't seen a formal proposal yet. So no discussions have really ever extended during those conversations beyond the boundaries of that particular parcel. So, but in the event that a redevelopment ever was proposed, the properties on both sides of Mountain View, those properties are zoned R20, which, as you know, is one of our least dense zones. And but the View of Blue Ridge is zoned RM4 and has been for some time, as is most of 133, which is one of our highest densities. So I wanted to address that because the question was asked at the last. But yeah, in general, if you ask me, has a developer contacted me about a property, the answer is probably yes. But people talk all the time, and we never see proposals necessarily. So,
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Jeremiah, do you have anything?
Yes, for Hometown Legislative Action Day, sent an email about the smoked legislative dinner. If you are going, please email, come see me after, or send an email tonight, because tonight is the deadline.
Email address now.
Yeah. Got you and Mayor so far.
Oh. So are you supposed to hang out with us?
You as well?
Yeah, I mean, you can put me on.
You know?
Okay.
to discuss it. Because I'm
We're
driving.
fine.
God. The reason why is I'm riding with him.
Oh.
So I'm like, wow,
Maybe
okay.
you aren't going to do
I
it.
guess not, well, maybe not.
You have to
Okay,
catch a
moving
ride on
on.
the road. You catch a ride on the road.
I was gonna say, well, I ended up in Mexico, okay.
Okay. All right, we move on. Any other, thank you for taking control tonight, appreciate it. Next is policy action. Just remember, it's a 2-minute limit per speaker. First is consider a second reading of a text amendment to Chapter 7, Section 7, 8, fixed assets. Leslie.
Yes, thank you. We're asking you to consider the second reading of the amended, Chapter 7, Section 7, 8, and hopefully it'll be called capital assets after this. So if you have any questions for me.
Questions,
No
comments?
changes since last time, right?
No changes.
Questions or comments from the public? All right, would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the second reading of a text amendment to Chapter 7, Section 7-8, fixed assets.
Second.
Okay, comments? All in favor, raise your right hand. All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Leslie. Next is other policy items, discuss expanding the scope of the municipal overhead to underground conversion program at Duke Energy to include the burial of the secondary line from the service pole back to the transformer. So Ellie, you're back on.
There has not been any changes since we talked last week. I talked with Duke last week after our meeting and told them that we seemed to be on the right track, and they had some properties in mind that had went through the process that they would be reaching back out to if this passed.
That was gonna be my follow-up question, if we were gonna okay, great.
Comments from the public? Questions? All right, would somebody like to make a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the scope of the municipal overhead to underground conversion program to include the secondary line from the service pole transformer if possible.
Second.
It's kind of like a tie. So, all right, any comments? All in favor, raise your right hand. All right, thank you very much. Next, mayor, council reports, comments, new business.
I'd like to make one comment, and I just happened to be over at CAM sometime last week, and the Sincerely Daniel project is phenomenal. And it doesn't open, I think, until in February, but I mean, if you get a chance to get in there, I mean, there's, I think the majority of it's done, there's still a few things that are kind of, have to yet to be done, but it is absolutely phenomenal, it really is. And I mean, I think it will be set up and on display for a couple of years, I believe, is the way I understand that. But I mean,
I think, I may be wrong. I'm looking, I think it's 6 months was the time.
It'll probably be a year to start and
Year.
see kind of where we're at.
The reason why I'm bringing that up is there's some items, I know some of us have gone out to reach out and we
Okay, got owners,
assured those items will get back to the owners, so we'll have to figure some of that.
yeah, but I mean, the fact that, what they've done with the walls and
Right.
not the overlay,
Well,
the wraps and everything, it'd be a shame for that just to be a 6-month event.
Agreed,
I'm sorry,
totally.
what did you say? I
Here.
missed the first
It's
part.
at CAM, and it's, I think it's called Sincerely Daniel, I think is the correct term.
Okay,
And so it features the athletes, black athletes particularly, that go back to as much as 60 years.
okay.
And so
All
it's
sports.
all sports, and it's basketball, it is all sports, but it's got locker rooms, and, I mean, it's really good.
Yeah, once it's finalized, we'll do a grand opening for community members for council. The sneak peeks that I've got, it really is great.
I have a feeling Bree will publicize that very well.
And last.
I see the head nods.
And I know Ally mentioned it, but my hat's off to Bree. I mean, she's been on the job a week, and
I know.
I mean, it was like constant over the weekend.
So kudos to that.
Yes.
I mean, she has been constantly, thank you very much for the constant messaging. We appreciate it, the updates. It really has kept everybody informed, so thank you.
I don't think
I
you
know.
signed up for that.
She jumped right in. Other, yes.
We are accepting nominations for Black History Month as well as Women's History Month. So nominations are due, and it's actually listed on the website, so thank you all for putting that up. The nominations are due January 24th for Black History representation of people we would like to nominate. And then Women's History Month, we're asking nominations to be turned in by February 21st. So Sarah, and I'm assuming Bree is helping her with that, but we have that information, and if you need to see a list of previous candidates, they do have that information. We'll make sure we send that out.
You asked for a list of who's had it in the past, because.
Yeah, that's the list of previous
Yeah, right.
recipients.
Thank you, that's great. Another shout out, if you saw the year in review, I think that was Natalie, Sarah, combination, before Bree, before you got here, if I'm not mistaken. But so yeah, another shout out there. That really turned out well. So thank y'all. Thank them. I would personally thank them as well.
Yeah, we made Channel 7. Thank you for the
yeah.
video of
Awesome.
WSPA. Yeah, it's great.
Chief and Mitchell,
Yeah,
there you go. They represented us well.
yes, they did.
I think what she says.
Any other?
Well, the budget, she was just asking, the budget workshop's this Friday, right? At,
What time do we start again?
8:30 for breakfast.
8:30. Okay.
9 o'clock. I just asked Andy this question too, so
Thank
don't
you.
mind.
That's good.
It's
All right.
8 till 2, 8 till when?
2:33, it'll just depend how the day's going.
I will have to leave it to the rest of the
Normally we're finished up by mid-afternoon.
Because I'm teaching, so I didn't know if you were.
All right. I'm sorry.
It's very informative.
That's right.
It really is.
It really
was
is.
a great, yeah, when I first joined council, it was a great way to learn anything.
All right, if there are no other reports, comments, new business, then if somebody would like, well, first of all, consider making a motion for executive session to consider appointments to city boards and commissions, South Carolina Code 34470. Would somebody like to make a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments, discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All right. We will be back. Appreciate it. All right, we'll come back from executive session. Would somebody like to make a recommendation for the Board of well, actually, take that back, Economic Development Advisory Committee?
That is me. I would like to make the motion of appointing John Duckworth to the community member position for 2 years.
Second, comments, discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All right, thank you.
I'd like to interject that I will serve as the liaison, this council liaison for that group.
Thank you for doing that. Appreciate it. All right, next, Parks, Rec, Arts, Culture, Tourism Advisory Committee.
Yes, I recommend that we appoint Sarah Williams and Jacob Whichams to the advisory committee until February 2028, and then Mindy Spearman till February 2026, and represents visual or performing arts.
Second?
Okay. Got a second, comments, discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All right, next, Police Advisory Board.
I make a motion that we appoint Winton Hunter and Elaine Masseri, both for 3 years, ending in February of 2028.
Second.
Okay. Got a second, comments, discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All right. Next, Board of Architectural Review.
I recommend that we appoint Hunter Hanahan for a period of 2 years to end February the 27th.
Second.
That was kind of a tie. All right, Jeremiah, you decide. All right, comments, discussion, all in favor, raise your right hand. All right, thank you very much. Next, Planning Commission.
I make a motion to appoint Benji Cumby for 4 years, Charlie Kernigan for 3 years, and Brian Yoder for 4 years.
Second.
I got a second, comments, discussion?
I just would like to add once again that I think the commission needs to be more representative, and I'll just put that on the record.
Thank you. All right, any other comments? All in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, and opposed? Okay. Next, and you got it.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm going to recuse myself since a family member is sitting on this commission. I'm not going to take part in the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for announcing that. So you're out of here.
Bye.
Like literally. Wait, literally, like, enjoy your evening.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
Wait till, okay, next is the Board of Zoning Appeals.
So I make a motion that we appoint Karen Ware to a term of 3 years, Keith Rocco to a term of 2 years, and Annie Morosky to a term of 3 years on the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Second.
Kind of tie again, all right. Comments? All right, all in favor, raise your right hand. All right, thank you very much. I believe we've covered everyone, right, Jeremiah? All right. Would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all right. Any comments, discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All right, we're adjourned. Have a great evening.